I'm waiting for the YouTube to go live. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's special episode of CAG Chat on our coverage of the County Executive Special Election. I am Sherman Hardy, and I'm honored to be here alongside my co-hosts, Derek Holmesley, Donna Goodman, LaVon Reedy Thomas, and Tanya Wickfield. Together, we founded Citizens for Accountability and Governance because we saw a need. Plain and simple, government should work as intended, operating with transparency, integrity, and a commitment to the people it serves. But too often, that's not the case. So, to our new followers, thank you for coming aboard because CAG exists to ensure that government functions as it's chartered to, upholding the trust that's placed in it by the community. And we hold elected officials accountable, not because of personal agendas, but because integrity and leadership isn't optional, it's essential. And we're relentless in that fight. Now, I'll toss it over to my co host, LaVon Reedy Thomas, because she's been running out of ink as she's been taking copious amounts of notes on the candidates. LaVon, go ahead.
Thank you, Sherman. Hey, everybody. Before we get started on our review of the county executive candidate debate from Wednesday night and our one-on-one interviews that Sherman did such a great job. He's still getting a lot of buzz for it, and other observations that we may have. Want to thank you all for the great feedback that you've given us on our first endeavors to be out here in these internet streets, hosting interviews and hosting debates. We don't typically see debates in Prince George's County, so we wanted to do something different. I think it ended up being more of a cross between a forum and a debate, and there was almost like conversations at points. And so we thank the candidates who gave their time. We know it was long. I think it clocked in at 2 hours and 42 minutes. And everybody gave their best, their undivided attention. Some people did have to leave, and that was okay with us because they had been there for a long time. And campaign season gets very busy on top of personal and professional obligations. So thank you to everyone who participated and everybody who stayed along with us in the chats. So I'm going to start with some generalizations, and you all, as Sherman said, can follow through. I thought that Sherman had put together a lot of questions. We submitted questions over the duration of the one-on-one interviews just to give you all a little bit of background. And he took them, and there were a total of 29 questions on the paper. And we ended up doing 10 out of 29, not including the yes and no's. And I like the yes or no questions because for me, it was like an icebreaker. And they had to just respond. Right. And maybe the questions, were a little challenging to just say yes or no, but they did have an opportunity to kind of give a little bit of explanation later on in the other questions.
Well,
right?
that was the intended purpose of those, because some of those questions were supposed to lead into a lot of the questions, later on. That was the problem.
Right. But they were, you could tell people were a little hesitant, but they did get to do that. And so I thought that was a really good way to start and put people on their toes. Oh, I should also say that the questions were not given either in the one-on-one interviews or for the debate ahead of time. So those candidates put their best foot forward in unknown spaces. So anybody have any feedback on the yes, no, or the opening, or any general comment?
I agree. I thought it was great because, like you said, I think it showed whether or not they really knew the issues, and it showed because you got to sometimes, be able to answer people quickly and process this stuff quickly. So I think that was really telling. So I thought that was a great round.
Well, I think on the yes or no questions where somebody had to be somewhere kind of in the middle of yes or no, they wanted to had an explanation behind it, but it
Mhm.
forced them to make a decision, either yes or no. Some of them still try to say, well, I have yes with an explanation, or I got to know with an explanation. But yeah,
And
it
following
forced,
the directions.
huh?
That's what someone
Following
said
directions.
that's what someone said in the chat. They said, why don't we just follow directions?
Yeah, right. And I was getting to that. I was just going to say, but it also gave an opportunity for people to see who would follow the direction, which was a yes or no.
Right.
What you doing, Sherman?
So then means
Levon, we can't hear you.
huh?
We can't hear you.
I don't know why.
Now we can hear you.
Hear you.
I didn't mute it, so this
I don't think you have the best connection right now.
Yeah, you're going in and out now.
You're freezing.
of course I rebuke the enemy.
There you go.
All right, y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I working by
Oh no.
Again?
Again.
Come on.
Now?
Come on, Line. You gotta act right.
So
See, I got some extra. I got an extra.
Tanya, go ahead.
But I can't carry it like Levon. Because I didn't take that many notes, but I'm gonna go then off of Levon while you get yours set and then just jump back in. So yeah, I thought that was good, the start off. And then yeah, I know we had a little problems with questions, but I thought the way we asked the questions to each person and then they had to respond. I thought that was really telling with some of the answers.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sherman. I think you wanted to say something.
Oh no, I was agreeing with you, but I was also saying that the way the questions, maybe I should kind of explain to everybody my rationalization, or our rationalization with South County Democratic Club. Everyone in these forums were doing, somewhat of their own thing and how they ask questions. Even today, with the Power Breakfast, how they ask, questions within groups. I think it's a unique opportunity for us to get to know the candidates a lot more, and to see how they, act in certain environments. For myself and, for Courtney, we wanted to, kind of determine their leadership style and give that a more sense of that, more so of, some of the typical questions that we get asked, to show, and I had some scenario-based questions that were in there that didn't get asked. And, I think those would have shocked a couple of people to see some of the responses. It's unfortunate we won't be able to get to see them, but I'll say what some of them are. But yeah, the whole formatting and us getting the moderator, because, we wanted to not give a perception that we were being biased towards any other particular candidates. Even, when we did the school board races, we were seeking out others to assist us with that. But yeah, most importantly, I just wanted them to be able to have an exchange as well. I believe in debates. That is something I think that pushes everybody forward. And I think that, we did do that in spite of a lot of the technical issues that we had. Luckily, a lot of people wasn't able to see what I was seeing with my vision as a producer, and also some of the things that I was thinking, alongside of having the tech issues. And they couldn't hear me as well because, for whatever reason, my microphone or my camera would not work that night. Possibly a good thing, because my opening about some missing persons probably may have not been conducive to, what we were trying to do last night. And I think that right now we have a unique opportunity to watch these candidates and see how they've grown from different debates that they've been to. But it looks like Levon is back, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to her. Levon,
Okay.
are you good now?
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. Well, hopefully it'll continue to be good. So Sherman gave some behind the scenes, but what I really wanted him to do was take a stab at one of his observations that he gave us about the
Were you can interview me, Lavon?
huh?
I said you can interview me.
Yeah, what did you think? What were the highlights for you? What was one of the highlights from Wednesday night? Or better yet, what was one of the highlights of your interviews with the 4 people? It could be one highlight of each of them, or just overall, what did you enjoy the most or learn the
I
most?
I think the most surprising was Tanya Sweat. I definitely enjoyed our conversation. I got to know her a lot more through the process. And I've also got to see her growth because we both ran for the seat in 2022. Um, and that was definitely a process. We share that experience. So to see her grow into the candidate she is right now, and being able to come up and say, and with her facts, and she's on it with her numbers, stuff like that. And I think, let's see, with Jolene Ivy, it was. I mean, I kind of from studying her past and previous interviews, I kind of saw what I was going to get. A lot of comments that I got from people who were saying that they wanted to be a little more lively. I don't know how the tactful word to say that. What the comments and what people actually said to me. But yeah, with Calvin Hawkins, I think Calvin could have done a lot better in the interview with us, and describing some of the stuff, that related to the position of county executive. Um, some of the things that he said does make sense, but he hadn't put it together to make it make sense, if I'm saying that right. And the thing about the land usage, I think there's a better way that the county can do it, because he has some valid points, but I don't think that removing, a chartered, power vested, is the right idea. And also because that removes a component from the people. That was the point of giving that task to the council, that among health and the budget. So you're removing that office out of the power of the council, and now you're placing it into what the executive's hand, through you said the planning board. So that was a bit concerning. As far as Rashawn Baker, I had always wanted to interview him, to pick his brain, and also to dig into him about not being president of Prince George's County. LeBron, I've always said that. I'd be like, where is he? He should be doing X, Y, and Z, because of what we're going through. But you also have to understand that an executive can't overstep the person in power at that time. No president's going to come out unless something is drastic. And I use presidency because I equate that on the local and the national level. No past president is going to come out against another president who's within the same party, of course.
Mhm.
So that was an unreasonable expectation. But I did want to see him more in the community. And from our interview and our discussion, I found out he was doing a lot of stuff with what I'm forgetting the name of it, not dementia, with Alzheimer's. And that was something near dear to my heart because, I have a high rate of that in my family. So, but, and other stuff. But overall, like I say, I think the 2 interviews that I really liked the most, and I hope people go back and watch all of them, was Sweat and Baker's. And as far as the debate last night, we can get it. So you can ask me about that in the future. I want to give
Okay.
other people opportunity to talk.
Okay. Anybody else have any observations about the one-on-one interview?
Well, I'll save mine for the debate.
Well, with the one-on-ones, I learned a lot that I did not know about Rashawn Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And
the whys.
Yeah, a lot of the whys, because I know I was probably one of the people that he hated to see come into any of the town halls and other meetings that he would hold, especially when he was holding them with Maxwell. So, you know, and I think it appears that he has communicated that he has learned from this because some things had he explained back then when I was howling him about, why is this happening and why is that happening, rather than shying away, had he just really sat down, I would have probably not has been as harsh. But to hear him come back and say those things now, it shows the growth that has happened since he's left the county executive office and now seeking to return. Of course, I do believe also Tanya Sweat has stood out. She had very detailed and concise but detailed, and wasn't fluff.
Fluff and stuff, as she says.
What's that again?
Fluff and
Fluff and
stuff.
stuff.
Oh, okay. The one thing about all of the candidates that I've seen so far that well, I can't remember if Baker mentioned anything on that line, but the only thing that really troubled me that went across was the I think it's the misconception of the role of the county executive when it comes to the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
So
see, if you would have told me about this, I would have had the videos ready.
What's that?
If you would have told me this, you wanted to talk about, or if this was going to come up, I would have definitely played that clip because for people to be able to see exactly how that conversation went. Because you're right, there were a lot of people that still inaccurately,
just thinking that you're going to just go out
about what they can do, because they kept saying that
they're going to hire a superintendent. It doesn't work like that, and I think that was probably
individuals from the school board, and you select from that. So somebody saying, well, I can't remember who it was. They were like, oh well, me picking the superintendent or the CEO, the CEO superintendent, I'll be able to pretty much have their say because they're going to pick somebody who aligns with their ideology, but you don't know
it
necessarily
doesn't work like that. Yeah, it doesn't.
And
work
the
like
other
that.
thing is,
well, let me say just one last thing first, really quick. And this was from our forum. I think it's really troubling that there is one candidate in particular, Senator Washington, that's running on the premise that he will hire a new superintendent. We have a superintendent in place. And so to come into the office and into this position and say, I will hire a new superintendent, that man has an ironclad contract. So are you going to tell us we're going to give him an over $1 million parachute because you want to hire somebody else?
And then again, who has the power and authority to remove him?
Only it can be recommended by the board, but it has to be approved by the state board, the state superintendent. So, I mean, to come in and tell people that's what you're going to do, you've already missed the boat because you're trying to swim uphill and upstream, and you're not even supposed to be there. So, to be that forceful and going around and saying you're going to do that, knowing that means you're going to go in here and try to cause this person to be fired, cost us to have to pay out $1 million parachute because he's going to get paid whether he's here or not. And then we're going to have to pay somebody else, and the starting salary is about $300,000. Nah, that turned me completely
What's the requisites? Can I apply?
Well, you know what?
I was going to, that was the point that I was going to transition to, Tanya. So what I will add to
welcome to segue.
What I will add to that is a couple of thoughts. One, the senator, I believe, sponsored the bill that changed the authority of the county executive with the board, the hybrid board, and all of that. So why he doesn't understand that, and I know from his own mouth that he did not like an appointed board and he didn't like a hybrid board. Not only that, it's a little bit of a dog whistle and some gaslighting in that whole conversation. And I'm not going to say he's 100% aligned with the what I call the rebels, but he has friends in those spaces. Right. And I just am concerned.
The progressive bloc, let's just say it.
Yeah. I'm concerned. I like my term, no rebels, but I guess if people don't know, I should say the progressives. And it's very disconcerting that he is in the position that he's in. And this is the other reason why I object to people who are in an elected seat running while they're sitting in that seat, because he could very well compromise some legislation as he's running for county executive, because he feels compelled to say one thing, but he got to vote another way, maybe. You know what I'm saying? And so I've been very concerned about that. And I think there were a couple of things that he's talked about in other forums that I can't pinpoint right now that I was like, see, that's a red flag for me.
Right.
You know, you can't talk about development, and the legislature has the authority to remove the council as the district council and assume responsibility for development, right? So you haven't even exerted the power that you have to correct what's happening now. So it's a little bit of hypocrisy and a little bit of contradiction and a little bit of conflict of interest that I've been hearing. So we had, like I said, we did 10 questions. It covered everything from what they would do in 90 days, the DPI question.
Yeah, that took up a lot of the conversation.
Yeah, Alonzo
and the person who mentioned it wasn't able to.
Issues.
Yeah.
So he dropped out. I didn't feel like the question about economic development was really answered. We didn't get the question on public safety. They talked about public safety within other answers, but we never had specifics. The budget, crime, HB 916, which is a juvenile crime bill. And Sherman, if you want to look that one up while we're going, so we can maybe talk about it a little bit. That was a very interesting situation where Miss Brave Boy was called out.
He said, that's okay. He said, that's okay.
You talking about them waving, putting their hands up during the form.
Donna's on, y'all.
Hey, Don.
No, I'm not gonna pull it up because you should have asked me before we came on tonight.
Can I say something?
Wait a minute, let me just run down the topics real quick. Taxes and the bag fee; those were things that were talked about. So we can, you can go, Derek.
Okay, for me, in terms of the forum, it's almost like, to me, it's like a job interview. So you know, when you go into a job interview, you should study, you should prepare yourself, you should look at the organization that you're interviewing for, and base your interview off of what that organization needs, right, and what they're seeking in an incumbent employee. So for the candidates, especially those who currently are sitting in positions on the council, and things of that nature, working in some form of politics in this county, I think for me, and I'm going to speak for me, and it may be that same way for other people, when we're asking these tough questions, especially if you're already sitting in a seat on the council, I expect a thorough answer. I expect a thorough template on how you're going to address the said question or the problem if you become county exec. And I mean, we're in the age right after COVID of Teams, Zoom, and all kind of social media meeting forums. You gotta know how to push the button to raise your hand. You gotta know how to unmute yourself. You gotta know how to work your technology. I thought that was kind of a block to us getting a smooth debate going. And even after the instruction to everybody on what to do, it still kind of was fumble. But in terms of the meat and potatoes and the questions that were answered, Mr. Rashawn Baker, of course, because he sat in the job before, he knows somewhat the lay of the land. His questions were thorough and sounded as though, because he's been county exec before, the experience was there. Some of the other candidates did not kind of hit the questions. And as far as Tanya Sweat concerned, we know that she's never served on the county council or as a county executive, but her information, like Sherman said, like
She
y'all
arrived. She
said,
came.
was on point
Yeah.
for someone that has never held any office politically in this county. So if I'm running for a position as distinguished as the county exec, I want to come across in every debate on every camera that I'm on as a county exec. That means the way I'm dressed. That means the way I articulate my sentences, my hair, everything. You want to look like
Put
the
your best
county
foot
exec.
forward.
Some of them, and I have to give you some tough criticism. Some of you saying that you're running for county exec, you don't look like the role of a county exec, and you don't speak that of a county exec. So if you want to be a county exec, you got to already be portraying that type of personality, and you have to answer the questions so that the public can feel confident that you know what you're talking about and you know how to implement your plan to get the job done. And that's what I was looking for from you.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Derek. There were some generalizations, or we can start with the 90-day, and y'all can tell me whose plan was more impressive. But my observation of the 90-day is all these people that keep saying they're going to go talk to the community. Haven't you been talking to the community? Don't you have a survey that you do, Calvin? Don't y'all do listening sessions, budget hearings, testimonies? Like, we don't need to waste time having any more listening sessions. People been in politics and working in government for 30 years, 20 years, 15 years. You should know the problems. I mean, come on. Everybody complaining about crime, schools, and what's the other one? It's either we don't have nowhere to shop, we don't have nowhere to eat, we don't like the hospital, we don't like the one-day trash pickup. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years politically, and the conversations have not changed to the point that I be zoning out. I'm like, oh gosh.
But you know what? That gets to the point where it's always, I'm going to lower property taxes, especially for seniors. Well, but you never say, what is the new revenue source?
Right.
So how are you going to do it? I
Right.
mean, we already got a shortage.
Right.
And so to hear that answer come out constantly, but they never tell you how. And we care about our seniors. Well, I would know that because I'm a senior, and when I send messages, you don't respond to me.
Thank
So I don't
you.
believe you love certain seniors, not all seniors, the ones in your clique. So
Yeah.
Well, and Tanya, that's why you right there on that spot. That's another thing I would like to point out. As a county council man or a county councilwoman or a county exec, when your constituents send letters to you or emails to you, and I know this group, we've put together professional letters on letterhead and sent to a couple, and I'm not gonna call their names.
We'll call them later.
Some of them running right here for this county exec, and we put letters on your desk of concerns from as concerned citizens, which all of us in this county as concerned citizens need to start doing more of. And we got crickets. You didn't even have enough respect to answer the letter. Tell us no, I'm not going entertain what you're talking about, or yes, this is the plan I have to address the concern. We got nothing, and you're sitting in a seat that serves the public. So Now that same couple of people, you're running for county exec. How do you expect some of the people who write you looking for answers on things, now you want to elevate to the next level of county exec, and you won't even answer people as a councilman or woman?
Not even the courtesy of a thank you for your email. We will
Right,
respond to you in 30 days. But
right.
today that person said they are always responsive to constituents. And I was like, I wanted to stand up and say, not us, but I ain't do that. I was nice. So I do want to highlight that surprisingly, let me just say for the record, and we're going to do our kind of grading thing or our overall review of each candidate. But for the record and for the transparency and disclosure, for those of us, I know we have a lot of new member followers and people have questioned what we do and how we do it. We all have our own experience and backgrounds, and we'll do another segment on one of our Wednesdays where we introduce ourselves. But just for the sake of this, for those who don't know, I worked with Mr. Baker for 14 years in and out of government. 8 years I served in the office of the county executive. So my commentary is very in the bubble, and I've been working very hard to not expose too much of my experience and knowledge as I was listening to people and reviewing things, because I want this to be, organic and honest. So what I will say about Mr. Baker's answers are he's in his own lane. And I shared this with the team already. There's a Baker lane. There's the everybody in the middle lane who's already been elected or who are serving. There's Tanya Sweat, who has never served. And then the fourth lane is them other people that just be running their mouths. So that's how I have processed this experience. So I did my best to try to acknowledge some things that people said that kind of perked my ears. So
Right.
as we talk about their 90-day agenda, Jolene Ivy actually said something that I know for a fact that needs to be done, and that is retraining employees, customer service. Now, she talked about how she worked at Disney. That's not, I would stretch that a little bit beyond customer service training, and there needs to be a desk audit. They need to have a review of employee job descriptions that look at skill set. A lot of what they're talking about is that people have not been trained. They've not been mandated for training. I used to hear people complain because they didn't want to go to class for the new software update. I don't know what's wrong with the system I'm using now. And so there's a culture in government that, of course, none of them would say, and some of them don't know. There's a culture that we're dealing with, and we have to figure out how to break through that culture. And when you elect people who have come through government, who are part of the culture, you are not going to make change. And what I will say is that Mr. Baker is not part of the culture of county government. And I'm just going to leave that right there. Anybody got something to say about the 90 days?
Yeah, I do, because this is the thing that really gets me. The two council people that are running, that it's like they're skating all over the deficit. They don't even want to talk about that deficit. You are part of the spending that created the deficit. And to not come before the people with a plan as to how you are going to address it, not even admit that it's there.
Right.
I mean, how are we supposed to really trust your word? And I know Mr. Hawkins is saying, I'm going to carry on what the previous county executive did. Well, I don't want no more debt. I don't want somebody spending out of my rainy day fund. So if you're telling us that that's what you're going to carry on, we don't need that. We definitely don't need that. And spending out of the rainy day fund, but not being transparent with the public. We got to do do PIAs and FOIAs and having people leak information before we find out you're spending it. And then once it gets out into the mainstream, then you want to say, oh yeah, we've been spending it. And but to not have anything to act like that does not exist and act like you are not part of the problem that we are currently in.
Right, because the council has the authority to bring forward the county executive, the directors of the agencies, and ask them what they want to know. And they have an audits and investigations division. Like, so I don't understand why they acting like they don't know. They act like balancing $171 million deficit is an accomplishment. And even though I'm not a fan, right, even though I'm not a fan of this particular candidate, he's like, but where's the overspending? Y'all overspending. Why are you overspending? And did Rashern say? And
but before you move to the next point, I'm really sorry. I have to say, being so they may balance it or not, the fact of the matter is there is still a structural budget deficit.
Right.
Structural.
Right.
Meaning that this is going to be continuously and ongoing until we solve this problem.
Right.
Because it's off balance.
Right.
But remember now, they didn't say they balanced it. They said they reduced. They didn't. I don't remember them saying balance. I remember.
Well, you have to have a balance.
Well, Jolene has said it's mandated, and Jolene has made that part of her campaign that she balanced the budget during one of the most tumultuous times and stuff like that. So that's part of it.
I don't understand how you balance.
There's no revenue growth. And did Rashern say that the Economic Development Incentive Fund that started out with $50 million is now at $15.15 million?
I think that's what he said.
Something about replenishing it. The thing is, you're supposed to have businesses that you can do grants or loans, and there should be a repayment within that. So that means they were just giving out money. So we need to ask for a
Levon, remember the General Assembly last year when the county executive was asking to redirect that school money for special education and school maintenance, the telecommunication and the energy tax money. Remember, Delegate Andrea Harrison said that they requested of the county executive to give them a total of how much had been written off and discounted to developers. And she never responded. So again, it gets back to what Calvin says. I'm gonna carry this on. Is that what you're gonna carry on? Giving write-offs to developers and then not telling us how it impacts your taxpayers? Come on. Now that these one of the things I thank Sherman for is constructing these questions so that it's not that fluff answer that you can get away with and say, oh, I'm going to decrease your taxes and I'm going to make your streets safe. How? Don't tell me what you're going to do. Tell me how you're going to do it.
Yeah, that's been my whole thing. And I've been trying, part of my kick in this walk of, trying to educate voters is we have to stop asking what they're going to do for us and ask how they're going to do it for us.
Exactly.
Because we know, Ron made a good point. He was like, we all sound the same up here, and you do. But it's until you break down how you want to do all of these things or some of these things, none of these things, or whichever the things, that's what truly matters. And nobody ever really sits down and say, this is how I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. It's broad ideas. And even with Alonzo, Senator Washington, when we ask, well, you want to get rid of DPI, what are you going to do with it? When, and there were some other things that we asked and the candidates, couldn't explain. One of the things I definitely want to ask is, Ron keeps talking about he wants to just, give seniors, I'm sorry, not seniors. It's called, what does he call them?
Signature
citizens. Yes, signature citizens. He says that, they should live tax-free. And I'm like, how are we going to pay for all singers, to not,
Well, you know what, though, Sherman? I think he did kind of give the answer to that. Now, and I know he was rough around the edges, and I know at some points it looked like he could shake somebody down, and he had no problems with telling you from New York.
Right.
So
Right.
I know he came across rough like that, but if you really listen to him, he was telling you how he was going to do it, because from his perspective, all of that money is there that we need. It's just being wasted, and we know where some of it's
But
being
that's the
wasted.
thing. That's what the problem was. He kept saying, "Oh, it's wasteful spending," but he could not say
No, but
what
he
the waste
did.
was.
No, he did. He came out and said how he would have things audited. He was saying, well, and he said some
He says
investigated.
investigation. He says
Investigate.
We don't need an audit. We need investigations.
Investigation, exactly. So he was actually, I guess for him, you had to get past some of his roughness,
Mhm.
and you could kind of really hear him saying what he was going to do. He was going to do a deep forensic investigation, and that would uncover money that we would need so that we could get structurally sound. So,
Right.
of the members, I will say of the candidates that for me, what I heard, who actually gave some meat to what they would do, was actually Mr. Hunt, Tanya Sweat, Rashawn Baker, and somewhat Mr. Cruz.
Mhm.
Well, I'm gonna just say, um, I think we're at a crossroads financially in this county where whomever is elected as the county exec, they're going to have to, in some instances and in some situations, put the blinders up and make the tough decisions, money wise, where to cut, where to add, and just do it. And you're
Right.
going to get the backlash from people because you cannot satisfy everybody, but you have to make the tough decisions. You have to make the tough cuts. I don't think the education and the school system is where some of those cuts should be, because they already
Oh, that was a
have some issues,
lengthy
some
conversation.
big issues, and then to cut more money, I don't see
Mhm.
how you're going to become more efficient in educating children with less money. But we need somebody in there who is going to make the tough decisions and not be afraid. And I'm gonna just say it, not be afraid of the higher ups over the county exec
Or their
wanting what they
friends. Or their
yeah.
friends.
But
So
Derek, before we move on to the next point, I definitely want to say this because I think all of you all would definitely enjoy this. And we're talking about cuts and education, stuff like that. Um, Councilwoman Chair Ivy said, with the blueprint, at a certain point, we're going to lose our AAA bond rating because we are being crushed by unfunded mandates. So I know that, you can twist it and say that, but that's not what I said. Oh, well, that's the rest of it. But yeah, pretty much what she was saying, that we're being crushed by the unfunded mandates. And when I got to thinking, I was like, well, if it's not the blueprint, then it's other unfunded mandates that the council is passing. So that's just a part of the fiscal responsibility that we need to talk about as well. That's the council has notoriously created programs and done different projects that they were only funded temporarily, if that makes sense. So that was just my 2 cents about that.
what have you done, and what areas are you deficient in that's about to make you lose your AAA bonding? Identify that. If you running for county exec, and tell us, and I'm not just speaking to Miss Ivy, I'm talking to all of them, and tell us what you're going to do to curtail losing the AAA bonding and
She
making
gon'
things.
she gonna bring some money to grants that she can't get the directors of the agencies to apply for. She tells them and they won't do it, but as county executive, she can make them do it. And she has direct access to the congressional member, Ivy. And then she has her son. I mean, she said that today, and I was like, she said, I don't know what the problem is. we're not breaking any laws. We're not stealing anything. We're not corrupt people. I could see if we were bad people, but we've done good things. We help people. So what's wrong with me being the county executive? I'm like, girl, do you hear yourself? Like all I can hear in the distance is, I'm working on the chain gang all the day long. Like it's just to me, it just has the propensity for wrongdoing. And the fact that she thinks it's okay to say, I got an inside track to Glen Ivy because I sleep with him every night, that just blows me away. But I'm not gonna get too far into that. So
well, you know what? Let me just say one thing. And it's not, and I know people are saying it's anti-incumbent season, but in the case in this county, it should be anti-incumbent season.
Right. Well,
they should just go right off the list because they have contributed and been part of the problem.
And I think as voters, you have to really look at people who are incumbent and what they have done while they've been in their positions, and ask yourself, do we want to continue that type of leadership? And I mean, I ain't trying to dog nobody or make nobody look bad, but the information, the proof is in the pudding.
Just say the proof is in the pudding, and if they don't like it,
let me put it to you like this. If you're playing in the football game and your offense is scoring and putting up points, but your defense is getting mauled, who gets fired after that game? The defensive coordinator, right?
Right.
Donna,
sound like you wanted to chime in.
Yes, I was getting ready to say the question should be, what have you done for me lately? Period. Yeah. If they haven't done anything for us, we need to get them out. I don't care about the name.
I know. Look, they don't spend all my money. They took my honey. It's time to go.
Sometimes it takes fresh faces, man.
All right.
That's all we saying.
So that would lead us to the question about what do I want to go do? I want to go to the fresh voice and fresh blood question that came up. Where was that one? That was, why I can't see it now.
It was many voters feel that leadership in Prince George's has gone stale and they're looking for fresh new blood and bold leadership. Each candidate, do you fit this category? And what's the boldest, most controversial decision we'll make?
Not when you're sitting on the council and you see a particular member just spending money like crazy, cutting people grass, and it's not part of the law, and you still voting to say yes because you think he's a good leader. No, I'm sorry. You're not fresh. It's not fresh.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that was said was, Tanya said the audit. I mean, Calvin's talking about a referendum to remove the zoning authority. Again, we can't have this stuff that's going to cost us more money. That means people won't have jobs. Like, you got to think that through. And that's not something you can do in 18 months. So that was just kind of crazy. And then that comes down to the DPI issue and Alonzo not being able to answer that question about whether he was just attacking poking at Rashawn Baker, or is he really criticizing Angela Alsobrooks because she's the predecessor and he had technical problems, so he couldn't answer it.
He couldn't answer that.
Right.
Well, I did reach out to everybody, not to everybody. I did reach out to his scheduler because a lot of people did message and say that they, were dissatisfied that they weren't able to hear him, that he was having so many tech issues, and so I did reach out and see if he would come on to our next live, not next week, the following week, to see if they have availability. And if he is, we'll give him, some time to come on and talk about some of those things that he wasn't able to mention.
So today he said that he maybe used the wrong word when he said that he would dismantle DPI, that he was really talking about reorganizing DPI.
Right. And that's what Jolene said she wanted to do. He said he wanted to dismantle it.
Right. But today he said he used the wrong word It should have been that he was going to reorganize or restructure it. And
but I think that's the second time I've heard him say that. So I guess he did it twice.
Maybe
dismantle, or
that's the second time I've heard him use that word, but I guess maybe someone schooled him on.
Today he was a little gentler and softer. And Tanya,
are you trying to say he's walking it back?
Yeah, that's what they call
like the people at the time.
Walk. Yeah.
Yeah, he walking it back. That's what he doing.
He did a moonwalk.
Because it's not even practical. And so Tanya brought up a really good point about trained inspectors, that we don't have trained inspectors. And then my question, and then she said that they were we need to address the corruption, and Calvin said, you shouldn't be irresponsible. I thought that was irresponsible of him to tell her not to be irresponsible, because even if he was challenging her, what she said, to accuse her of being, that just was dumb. Like, you shouldn't have.
But you know what?
Well,
he set himself up when she gave him the case.
Well, there you go. I was getting ready to say that. So in a situation like that, when you debating and running for an office like that, and somebody comes at you like that, you got to be in a position to put the facts out there. And I will give her credit. She did put the facts out there. She put the case, case out there.
She did her homework.
Yeah. So
she acted like a prosecutor.
Right. So the thing is, I know that there are inspectors who are hired from retired positions or disability positions within county government to be inspectors, and we don't have enough inspectors. And I've always wondered about the training,
and then not going to full time. Somebody contacted me about that, in the tip, and said that they're trying to push a lot through before we get the next county executive. I don't know. I haven't been able to verify the veracity of it. I did reach out to my contacts.
And so I know what's going on. So I would be curious to know if there's any certification, and why not? You should be certified. But I was also told a couple of years ago, when I was complaining about the restaurant, condition of a restaurant, and they were like, well, we don't do health inspections on restaurants unless we get complaints.
Yeah. And that was the same when I found the roaches and stuff. I'm like, we need to be grading these, but that won't pass here.
And are they still allowing the builders of homes to do their own inspections? Like the Fox guy at the hen house, they still doing that too?
Probably, but nobody ever really got into that part of it. But I thought,
but you know what? Another thing that they do, and tell me if these are right, because I know I was trying to get an inspection done for a client of mine who had just bought some property and stuff. So it seems like all the inspectors, I was told, after, I think it's at the beginning of April, they're all on pool duty, inspecting pools or something like that. So you can't get anything done until after the inspection of pool season, because there's so few of them. And then and I know we were trying to get an inspector to come out because we were getting a perk done, and it was so hard to get that scheduled. And I remember the inspector said, you better hurry up, because after this time, we all have to, our focus is on inspecting pools to be in time for Memorial Day?
Right. So we don't, the way DPI was created is, it was a separation of Department of Public Works and Transportation, Department of Environment, and another agency. I can't remember what they called it, but they were all under one umbrella. They were departments within a department, or divisions within an agency, and they broke it out because of the overwhelming crossover of responsibilities that the staffing had, and there were no, the checks and balances were hard because you had people kind of overlapping responsibilities and different needs, right? And so that's when Rashawn separated it. but I know that they moved employees from one agency to another agency so that because they couldn't necessarily hire people on the spot to man the agency change, right? And I can't say if employees were hired or not, but I know that a lot of issues were that we were understaffed. And
well, you know what? It seems like we have well, anyway, there's some serious problems because I think it gets back to that question that I asked you before. I mean, is our budget so thin?
Yes.
That we do not have career people hired full time, and we're doing this constant contractual thing, which is why things are just seem like they're falling apart.
Well, we had career people who had retired, and the retirement has continued to happen.
Yeah, but they're not being replaced.
And they're not necessarily being replaced.
But my question is, are we not replacing them because of our budget issue where we cannot cover career people? We cannot have a career staff. Is that a budget issue? And I guess that's a question we probably need to start asking.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has ideas, but nobody has addressed, like we said earlier, the how. So when we get to economic development, the question was this education? That I really don't, if we don't have a lot to say, that's fine, because we talk about education all the time, but it was talking about the county executive having limited authority over PGCPS. And to me, nobody really answered the question. There was a whole bunch of blah, 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 blah. Tanya did point out the bill that's on the table to change the superintendent.
Yeah, but that's only, we know that that's being pushed by the progressive bloc. And I'm sorry. And another reason why I think it's really, like, to your point, where Senator Washington should not be going around telling everybody the first thing he's going to do is hire a new superintendent with a bill like that floating around.
And who's the sponsor of the bill? Is he the sponsor?
I need to go back and I need to go back and look at who's the sponsor. But I tell you one thing, I saw one board member holding a community meeting where that's being pushed. And of course, we know that has been something that has been pushed really hard by the progressive bloc, even back when Dr. Monica Golson was there. It was pushed that point because for some reason, these folks have it in their mind that they're going to get, not even qualified. They don't even know their own job. But anyway, we're talking about the candidates for the county executive. But They have it in their mind that they will be able to bring somebody in who they think should be the right person. None of them are educators. None of them can, some may have taught 3 years and then they call themselves all of a sudden a professional educator and
none of them have been executives. Again,
exactly. None have been administrators. They've sat in a classroom maybe 3 years and then all of a sudden, got nonprofits and stuff like that. But I think the fact that you have the county executive candidates running on the fact that they, touting that I will select the next superintendent. Now, the law does say they will select the person, but unless the board approves the person and writes the contract, which is kind of silly about some of the laws our legislators write.
But
it doesn't happen.
But that's the goal, Tanya. The goal is for the county executive to be a progressive, the school board to be a progressive bloc, the council to be a progressive bloc, and the state's attorney to be a progressive bloc. So they will be running everything.
What was that?
So about the debate, I just want to say that in education, because you all going off tangent, I want to talk about Slocum because he said that, we were discussing the blueprint, and this is one of the misses. He said the blueprint is construction of public schools, and a lot of people don't know that. We speak in lingo, but the average person don't know it's associated with that. Then proceeded to say that we can save on cutting new construction and build on underperforming properties that could be reconstructed to save money. The blueprint is not about construction.
Sherman, see, you wrong for that.
No, I'm not wrong. I'm just highlighting and letting people. First of all, I don't want anybody to be confused and think because he said. I mean, because honestly, he's right. I'm one of the lot of people that didn't know the blueprint was about construction. So I just want to make sure that people know that it's not a blueprint, meaning, you know, designs for construction. We're actually talking about a plan for education. It was supposed to help educators, the students, invest in their community schools and a wraparound service and making sure that children are going to be college ready and stuff like that. So that's exactly what the blueprint is.
See, I just let that one.
But oh wait a minute, I'm sorry, y'all. I had to take a call. But that is a portion of it, the construction. But this is the part that I
But the blueprint isn't construction.
Well, the blueprint does include some of that. But this is the part that I didn't like, that I was concerned about, that nobody touched on about the blueprint. And that was, you know, all of this you know how I feel about that poverty money that's built into the blueprint for Prince George's County. And
what is supposed to help us?
Huh?
It was designed to help us.
But at what point will our county executive work within the agencies, work with the county county council, so that we move our people off of being dependent on a government resource? And become part of the thriving economy that we're trying to build within the.
How else are we going to do it without the resources? Because, you know, we rely heavily on property taxes. So
yeah, but we cannot continue to have, you know, just like this crazy $800. Well, anyway, that's the council. We're not going
to. I heard that we pay 40% into the state budget. Prince George's County does. I'm still trying to look that up and looking for the
How do we pay 40% into the state budget?
That's what a reliable source told me. I'm still trying to dig into that. So, and revenue to the state, but that's, you know.
So here's what's interesting.
Let's get back to the debate.
Are you talking about? But say, well, yeah. I just want to know how a county executive that's going to work so that our poverty numbers decrease.
And we never talked about poverty. We never talked about the high number of free and reduced lunch students that we have and how that affects. Somebody did mention, I can't remember which forum or conversation it was, but somebody did mention about having, maybe it was Alonzo today when he was talking about the way he grew up. And he was homeless and the needs that children have and how that becomes costly to the county, right? And so all those things have to be equated, because if the more poverty goes up, the more services people are going to need. And when people who have the means get tired, they're going to go. They're going to leave. And so that Rashawn keeps talking about the flight to Charles County. And I think that we need to really find somebody who can really break that down into some bite-sized pieces so we can start to really understand. Because the other thing that tripped me out is, I think there was a question along the way or a comment made somewhere along the way about, well, how much money do we get from the feds? And nobody could answer. The people that sit in office couldn't get a formula. Kind of like the way we were talking about the senior home ownership. If you have 100 houses, 100 homeowners, out of the 100 homeowners, how many of them are 65 and older? You can't find that information. I Googled it and it said Maryland demographics of homeowners is hard to pin down or hard to find. But let's move on. So they were asked about he went out of order. So if I said we didn't do public safety, I misspoke. So it said you can't fund everything. Schools, public safety, infrastructure, and programs need funding. If you had to cut one major area from the budget, what would it be and why? And we know that Calvin struggled to talk about this in his one-on-one interview. And I don't know that anybody ever said, Tanya said, cut the fluff and stuff. Stop borrowing money. P3 needs to go. Nobody really wanted to cut anything. Nobody said anything.
Well, Jolene said the blueprint, and so did Calvin.
She said freeze the blueprint.
He said cut the blueprint?
No, she said
freeze.
She did come back and correct it.
Right.
No, but she did.
So I thought that freeze. I would have said cut the county executives' expenditures, because they don't need to travel out of the country. They don't need to have all these special assistant deputy management people. I pulled up the org chart for the current county executive office, and what I don't see is all the little positions that are in there. Mm-hmm. And so I got to find out what that looks like. But I would say start with the county executive's budget. Right. That's what I would say.
Well, let me ask. So does the county executive have anything to do with the approving the staffing numbers on the county council side? Is there any check on that?
That's their body.
Yeah, they get to do their own budget, and I guess they have a line, something that they have to work within.
Well, I guess on the checks and balances side, and I guess that's not a question that we asked, but I think it could have been something interjected with the spending, and that is, vetoing things that just don't make sense.
Right.
It just seems like it's a free fall.
Well, I think I do recall Tanya Sweat saying, along with the fluff and stuff and the corruption, she mentioned cutting all the expensive vehicles that the top level directors and top level position individuals get to drive as their personal vehicle while they're in that position. And she did say something about she would not take any more money away from the school system that's already reeling. I'm trying to think of what I heard anybody else say, but I will say that the people who are currently sitting in county council seats, that would have been an opportunity for them to be strong in their vie for county executive by explaining a plan or giving a template, a clear-cut template on how they will handle that. And I don't think at least I did not get that from them. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I'm looking for. If you're already sitting on the council, you have information that other people may not have.
That would admit that you haven't done some things right.
That's true. That's true.
That's not a winning message.
Well,
but unfortunately, guys, we keep promoting people who don't do their jobs at the first level. You go from the school system to the county council to the Congress. We got to stop promoting people who don't know jack squat.
Right.
And
just because they give us a nice soft answer.
Right.
Or they carry your umbrella over your head to walk you in the building.
Yeah. So
just
let's
say thank you.
We got 4 more questions, 4 more areas. Crime. The question was asked, well, since Attorney Braveboy was not there, State's Attorney Braveboy was not there, it was talking about the bill that she introduced, HB 916, and I think you sent it to me, Sherman.
There it is.
Oh, okay. A child may not be committed to Department of Juvenile Services for out-of-home placement if the most serious offense is 1, possession of marijuana, 2, possession or purchase disorderly conduct, 4, malicious destruction of property, 5, an offense involving inhalants, 6, an offense involving prostitution, 7, theft involving amounts less than $1,000 or
trespassing. A child whose most serious offense is one specified above may be committed to the Department of Juvenile Services for out-of-home placement if the child previously has been adjudicated delinquent for 3 or more offenses arising from separate and independent circumstances, and the child waives the prohibition and the court accepts the waiver as knowing, intelligent, and voluntary, or the court makes the written finding. And those were some of the
so wait a minute. So that's called a crime spree, right?
Yeah, because and now the legislature in Annapolis is trying to pretty much make it a RICO, to say it's organized when you take $50 from this spot, 100 from that one, in different jurisdictions within the state of Maryland, because they realized that people were skirting the law by doing this.
Yeah, because it basically lets you do a crime spree here. Okay, so this is the one people wanted to tiptoe around.
Right. Yes. And so I believe that Jolene was in office when this bill was passed, and I didn't get to go and look to see how she voted on it, but she definitely was very, or defensive, gently defensive. We can't blame Miss Brave Boy for everything that's happened. And Rashard basically was like, no, we warned her and told her that this bill was a problem and that it was going to create a problem for the courts and and Jolene then turned around, or somebody turned around and said that the judges were doing release. Jolene said it. She said, well, they're arresting people and they're releasing them. Well, they don't have a choice.
Right.
and this issue was already a problem. So my question, well, this don't have nothing to do with the debate, but I'm just going to say in a nutshell, it begins to look to me like the law was put in place for the benefit of the judges, so that the judges would have an excuse for why they weren't holding these people, because they were saying that the jail was too full and wasn't no need in putting people in a crowded jail. And so it looked like a little bit of...
I would kind of push back on that, because it doesn't sound like the judges. It sounds like the push for restorative justice programs.
No, that's what we're calling it. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't benefit the judges. When the judges were already being lenient in their decisions, and then here comes this legislation, it just kind of worked out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, I guess I would want to see, how many judges were being that lenient. But to have something like this put out there, like I said, to me, as you were reading that, I said, that's called making room for a crime spree there. I mean,
yeah, and that's what we're
saying. And I would think that any attorney should know that.
Well, they're saying that
if you're a prosecutor,
these smash and grabs are organized actions, and these people are not selling their clothes individually; they're selling it to distributors. Right.
Mm-hmm. And then they're using, and not even just in our county, but in various places, they've been able to uncover that it's been people in Los Angeles who've been coordinating a lot of the theft across the US.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, I'm not saying that that's what we're having.
Some of our legislators spend a lot of time over there on the West Coast looking at what they're doing and trying to bring that back here. And everything just can't work that way.
Well, they still get a free vacation. So
I know.
There's that.
So that kind of tied the conversation.
Well, let me say one other thing about this crime thing, too, about the county executive, because the only two people that, well, Mr. Hunt has his way of saying things for that. But other than that, the only two candidates that really answered something were Tanya Sweat and Rashern on that one. It was like everyone else was trying to be easy so they didn't offend somebody.
Right. Calvin wanted to blame it on the perception that people are unsafe because the numbers, the stats say, and here's the other observation that I had. People who are every day sitting in their seats and have resources and reports and documents and findings, why not say on December 31st, 2024, we ran the crime numbers and it said X, Y, and Z. Don't just generally say the stats. You know, when you want to talk about the budget, why not bring the facts to the table? And that's where Tanya really, Rashawn didn't do it. He doesn't do a lot of facts in that way. But Tanya was, like you said earlier, she was able to present complex information in a very substantive way that made it understandable to people, right? She came with this is the law and this is how I would address it, because I would have the authority under this policy or under this law to do it. And when you got people sitting here who deal with facts and numbers and research every day, and they can't present not one of them, because I went through and I looked, not one of them presented data. And we are a data-driven society. And that to me is a shortcoming, because the only way Baker knew how to do T&I was to okay, wait a minute, let me finish this thought. I finally got it. The only way Baker was able to do the Transforming Neighborhoods initiative was based on data, third grade reading scores, household income, health status, and location to public transportation. And that's how they carved out the 6 communities. And so data, he had a data-driven administration in a lot of ways. And that's what Tanya talks about, right? And so it's just so disheartening. Go ahead, Sherman.
Oh no. It was kind of off subject, but on topic. Unpopular opinion, I've always said, and I see the passion of law, because you kind of mentioned, I see the passion of law in Tanya. And I would love to see her as the state's attorney. You know, I know that's not what she's going for. She definitely, you know, she expressed wanted to be an executor or in the executive branch, you know, when we interviewed. But over time, like just watching her, I'm like, I would love to see her as state's attorney, because she's been a prosecutor, she's been defense attorney. And I don't think I think our county has been missing that as well. And this is along the conversation of crime. And I posed a question in CAG chat, and you know, some people may see it later on. Some people have actually commented, and I was inquiring if the state's attorney's office position, if it was term limited, and I knew the answer to that. I very much know government, especially Prince George's government. But I only said that to be, I guess you could say, facetious, because I'm like, every few years, you know, they get 2 terms, and then they just like, okay, well, I'm going to move on to the next thing. And I'm like, where is you know, they talk about Ms. Braveboy. She actually answered a really good question earlier at the breakfast. And, you know, she was talking about how, you know, increasing the funding for the state attorney office, and, you know, being able to keep a lot of the good people there from going to other jurisdictions. And I'm like, okay, well, what about the top cop though? Like, can we get somebody in there that's going to love that job enough to be in there for a few years to make sure that we increase our conviction rate from 90% to 95%? You know, maybe that's a goal that we can kind of focus on. But that's just my opinion. I'm rambling, and, you know, it's besides the conversation.
That's okay. I see you've been checking Facebook, Sherman. So if anything jumps out at you that you would like us to elaborate on or reflect on, definitely let me know. I was trying to.
Well, there was one comment that says, thank you, Tanya, for commenting about candidates promising to lower property taxes without explaining where they plan to find additional revenue. I think a lot of the residents kind of wanted to know that. So that was most certainly important. But yeah, that was one that I saw in the
So I see somebody talking about Rashawn Baker did 2 consecutive terms. I'm not understanding why the law is not applied. Petitions have been signed, still no actions. These things have been occurring in the county for a decade. It's time for new faces on that bottom line. No for Baker. So let's just say that.
Oh, that must be in a different thread.
This is on the Facebook thread. Oh, I'm sorry. This was on. Dang, why does it? Facebook does that. It slid me into a different, into the.
Yeah, but the key there is
it's relevant. Go ahead, LaVon. We're talking about the debates and also the candidates the other way. So,
but it won't let me open up. It won't let me open up the Facebook. I don't know why.
Don't you worry about that. I got it. But to answer that question, the fact of the matter is the charter states that they cannot do anything more than 2 consecutive terms.
Right.
So as long as there's a gap in between that consecutive term, they can run again.
They can run again.
It's the same as the county council, how they jump from a district to at large and from back to to being delegate, then back to the council. So
Now
that explains Tom Donaga being back here and Eric Olson.
Right. And the thing about it is Rashawn did introduce a ballot question so that they could do, both the council and the county executive could do 3 consecutive terms. So it's not like the law has not been examined in recent years. So this wasn't just something that like, oh yeah, let me just go and try my way about it. Right. It's just funny to me how people.
And the Board of Elections will also, if you're not an eligible candidate, they're going to be like, no.
Right.
But you know what? But to their point, the Board of Elections should have by now explained that to the public.
The Board of Elections needs to be overturned. But anyway, okay, let's move on to taxes. The question was, we urgently need additional funding, but the county is unable to raise property taxes due to trim, declining revenues from recordation and transfer taxes. Who supports exploring new forms of revenue generation, as such as a countywide sales tax to bridge the gap? Everybody opposed it except Calvin. Calvin said he would look at any option. He would consider any option that was put before him to increase revenue.
Now, wasn't it only Tanya and Rashawn explained why?
About them being regressive.
Yeah, so that people would understand why they would not do that.
Right. And so, Jolene wanted to talk about how much money was in the DC and the number of people. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? So she ran out of time. So she didn't even answer the question.
Who was she talking to?
What you mean? Who was she talking to? She was answering the question.
Do it like on the off, not the.
Oh, I don't know. She had somebody in there she was talking to.
Because I remember one of them. She repeated the question when it was for somebody else, and I guess she was like, it was looking like she was like, "What are they talking about?"
Right? Yeah, I saw that. She like, and she was like laughing. It was funny how she kept trying to be the assistant moderator. I was like, can you just sit there and not try to run nothing? But anyway.
Well, okay, no, that was Ron who wanted to ask a question. I'm like, how? No.
Chill.
Yeah.
I'm not even addressing him. Okay. The last question was about the bag fee, which I felt like everybody missed.
They fumbled.
Yeah, the mark on the question.
Not Tanya.
Well,
they didn't talk about how much income
well, we don't know how much income it is because there is.
Well, I don't even think that was addressed. That's a possibility.
A report to it, dude.
How is anybody going to get a report on it when the business just recouped that money? It just goes into.
The businesses have no legal obligation to tell them how many bags they sold in the year, which is why it was a bad policy. You give these people, to me, in my little bit of knowledge about a business, one, you force them to have an expense that they didn't have already. So what they're going to do is hand off the cost of that expense already to the public. It probably costs 2 cents for the bags. They charging 10. Now,
why are you saying that they were given bags? They were having bags. It was just plastic.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Now it's for everything.
They caused them to change their business inventory. So you think that's not a tax write-off somewhere along the way? Somewhere along the way,
I guess I'm just equating it that it's still a bag. It's just a different type of bag. So I don't it's to me, it's still a cost you have to pay.
Because it's
still a bag.
Because you're imposing on their option as a business. The law says you can no longer do this.
How is that imposing? Because
it's not.
You still have a bag. You still have to give them a bag.
Because the county doesn't want plastic bags, and plastic bags are cheaper than the paper bags.
Okay, but there's still plastic bags being sold. Like there's an option for both. So nothing has changed.
No, they're not supposed to have plastic bags. There's no enforcement.
That's not what the law says. That's not what the law says.
Those permanent bags are, but this is the thing that I don't understand. Because did they show us that plastic bags were cheaper than
they are cheaper.
The paper bags?
I mean, they are cheaper. I don't have any proof. I just know because I've
looked it up for business.
Okay, but let me tell you, when I used to work long time ago at McDonald's, and McDonald's wanted to start saving on money, giving away a secret, I guess. But anyway, you got a bag for your food, and then they started telling us that, well, if it's for the family, put everything in just one bigger bag. But I remember always seeing the breakdown of when you get your meals, and the cost of the bag was already calculated in there. So I don't think that other companies were not already doing that. So I don't really see where it was a big imposition on them. And how do we know? Let's say that the plastic bag, do we know what the difference is? So are we saying 10 cents to make up the difference? I mean, I don't understand some of that.
You're giving too much. That's the problem with the
wait, this is my problem with that build. If we're saying that we're giving a break to the businesses, what about doing something giving a break to the people? Because here we're paying to give that break to these businesses.
Nobody's getting a break.
But it's not a break. It's an added cost. It's an expense.
It's not an added cost. Okay, wait.
Listen.
Hold on a second. We're not covering anything for anybody. The point is these businesses.
How are we not covering it then?
Please allow me a moment to explain it.
Okay, go ahead.
These businesses and establishments are still selling the plastic. They're still, they still have plastic or paper. The only difference is now that you're mandated to pay 10 cents per bag. That's the only thing to it. And the council or the state or nobody is getting this far. It just goes into the revenue basket for the businesses. It isn't anything.
Okay, but again, Sherman, if you're saying they can still do plastic or they can do paper, and it's already a cost that they factor in, that they're going to give either plastic or paper bags. The only difference is when they give paper bags, you're now saying it's a little extra cost. So if we're paying for that bag, then that cost has been passed on to us.
The consumer.
Yes.
So why would our council do something to pass on the cost of a business doing business onto us instead of putting something in place to
make them pay
us?
Because as it was explained to me, they cannot make a business not use something that goes outside of their, what they want to do. So because my understanding is that it was mandated that plastic bags not be used in the county. That's my understanding.
My understanding too.
Well, I would be curious as to what Virginia does with it, because Virginia charges for using bags.
Montgomery County does too. Their money goes into.
But I'm just curious as to where does that money go? Does that money go to the business, or is it going into the county coffers? Or
in Montgomery County, it goes into a fund, an environmental fund, I believe.
So
I'm wrong. Actually, it says, looking at the Better Bag bill, it says that there are no more plastic bags, and you pay 10 cents for a paper bag or bring your own, which that may be the intended law, but that's not how it's being applied. I know definitely I had a friend who reached out to the Department of Environment or the council because of, how they were being charged. And be clear, if you're going to say no more plastic bags because of the environment, then you mean no more plastic bags. Right. It doesn't mean you go to a carry out and you can still get a plastic bag, or you go, this place and that place. So again, it's
the reusable bags are
contradicting.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say,
furthermore, there are
Tanya.
plastic bags that you can actually use for compost. And let's not belabor the whole bag conversation because we're getting off topic. But that was part of it.
My only thing is this: I would have liked to hear one of the candidates to say how they would do something where that could benefit us, the citizens, instead of benefiting the business.
Well, somebody said that, it's minuscule pretty much, like we wouldn't have got that much. And I'm like, well, how would you know? I think I know we're talking about the tax, but while we're on the subject of taxes, because Calvin did, talk about, additional taxes or stuff like that, whether he was for it or against it. But, what he did bring home to the conversation is everybody was talking about future stuff. But, the question was right now of being in the deficit, and what do we do right now? Because, everybody's banking on the FBI, or Tanya keeps saying that we need to invest in the sports entertainment and stuff like that, but we have to see where trends go, and she says that you plan, and definitely I know she has plans for something else, but again, sports entertainment and also the FBI, sometimes we may need a plan B as well, and I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, but
yeah. Well, I will, and I know I remember this because I kind of opposed this, and I think I remember Levon and I talking on Facebook about this. But I know when they were talking about rebuilding or redesigning Suitland, and because I'm a graduate of Suitland, I was just thinking, if we're going to get a new school, we don't want it to be used for county entertainment. And so I remember us having that discussion, similar to like what Tanya was saying, to have something to attract people to come in and pay for, maybe using our buildings. And there is money in entertainment. So I at least like the fact that she had an idea of trying to figure out another income stream instead of taxing citizens.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
and when I say she, I meant Tanya Sweat.
Yeah, there are a couple of plans that are already on the table for entertainment, and yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. The W word never came up. Westphalia never came up. There were a lot of things.
Yes, it did. I thought
so. I mean, what's his name? Cruz mentioned it, but the way he was talking about it wasn't how we needed to have it discussed. Again, no disrespect, but I dismissed what they said. I ain't had that kind of time. So let's move to the grading.
Well, before we do that, let's because we had one candidate who was invited twice, and it seems like they could make all the other candidate forms, but they couldn't make the ours with the
3-hour stretch.
With
a 3-hour stretch.
Exactly. Yeah, could not make ours. And I just, and we asked hard questions. We did. And I have to wonder if some of the reasons why Aisha Brave Boy just couldn't fit us on her calendar to ask, answer some questions.
Well,
because quiet is kept, and truth be told, and quiet no more. But definitely when I hit the candidates up, so I was like, listen, my schedule is wide open. And I did these back in the beginning of January. Like I had these letters typed up to send out to them like New Year's Day. It went out a couple of days later. So, and I was like, hey, morning, noon, or night, I am available. When are you ready? And it just didn't happen. I got the runaround like several times. The campaign manager was like, oh, and all of us had different people reaching out to them. I know people personally that has say Attorney Brave Boy's phone number, and the people on her team, they were like, but text this person, contact this person, people on the team, they had their contacts that was reaching out to Ms. Brave Boy, and I didn't just want to look. I didn't want to look thirsty, quite, to be honest with you, because I mean, at some point, you just know when somebody ducking and dodge you. I'm 40 years old now. I know how life works. Even South County Democratic Club was reaching out and personally text. We'll get to the flyer in a minute for the debate, but we're still talking about the interview. So, when we were trying to get a hold of everything, the schedule was like, oh, well, I'm not doing that anymore. You have to talk to the campaign manager, and the campaign manager was like, oh, well, no, this is the person that's supposed to do it. So I ended up doing a group message. And I was like, hey, so what is it? You like one person saying they ain't supposed to do it, the other person saying it is. Are y'all not running your campaign? Like you're supposed to. There's bad communication. So I was like, what's up with this this meeting? To whenever she's ready, I'm ready. And the response was, Aisha's sick, and she's booked and busy. And happy holiday. Take care.
Well, and remember now, the day before this debate, she had no problems being on that town hall meeting that not much was said, Yeah. But
yeah.
Something I just want to say.
Well, that was the interviews, though. But the debate was something totally different. They contacted me at 1:00 the day of to say they had just saw the flyer with her name and face on it, didn't know it was being advertised, and that she's not able to make it because she already has 2 events. Now, that's inaccurate because I do have the photographic proof that the flyer that was sent to all the candidates was actually text to Miss Brave Boy. So, however the public may see that one way or not, she was definitely invited and didn't come. And,
not just didn't come,
didn't
but
acknowledge.
neither times did they have the courtesy of responding. Thank you for inviting Miss Brave Boy, but she is unable to participate in your interview or your debate. Right. And as constituents, that's just not right. So don't be talking about you support your people, your constituents. You got selective support, Aisha.
And let Derek go, and I want to just share something. But Derek, you go first.
Y'all always get on me for trying to be cordial and respectful to people.
We cordial and we respectful. We ain't call nobody out your name.
You about to miss what you trying to teach.
You're not being cordial now.
What I'm trying to say is that I don't personally know Mrs. Brave Boy. I haven't had any interaction with Mrs. Brave Boy, but I do know that we sent Mrs. Brave Boy a letter back when.
Well, you got to steal my thunder because I got the letter up.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you go ahead. But I guess what I'm trying to say to the public is that I believe the young lady did not want to come because we have sent her some correspondence asking her to take action on some stuff, and Tanya will reiterate what that action is. But the CAG group, it like that. We were calling candidates on the floor to give them an opportunity to sell themselves and to debate against the people who are competing against them. We were not going to take a shot at you for not responding to what Tanya's getting ready to talk about.
Most of the stuff that we were asking about. I'm gonna give you pass it to you next, but I just wanted to say because even in the school board, Shayla was afraid to come on as well, but I was being fair to everybody. I was not going to ask any question that we had any actions pending or stuff like that because of course I know what the response would be and stuff like that. But it's just I guess they were scared. That's all I can say. But go ahead, Tanya.
I did want a question to be asked because I think it's important. And first, I just want to make sure everybody, Aisha's first campaign for when she ran for delegate, I worked on her campaign. She was our parliamentarian when we were on the county PTA. So it's not like I have not worked with her. It's just that people get caught up into different people agendas and they change. So here's the thing that I think that she may have been nervous about, that we may have asked. And
And
I
her
think
people was on last night as well, or the night before last, which I didn't know.
yeah, some of them were on there. So can everybody see the
They were
screen?
scared I was gonna bust them because I told them I would.
So everybody see this letter?
Yes.
Okay, this was a letter written to State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy, and this was at the beginning of that time when we were having those issues with the Progressive Bloc harassing Dr. Juanita Miller. And so we wrote a letter because there was a fraudulent act that had been performed by, or who had been done by, a board member, Edward Burrows. And it was, you can see this letter was written June 9th, 2021. We were very detailed in what he had done. It was considered fraud because he had altered or forged a contract.
Right.
Then we even spoke about a contract that was over $500,000. This is that contract with LIUNA, and the fact that there was no paperwork ever given to the board when the board was asked to extend a contract for LIUNA based on the claim that they had done all this remediation for the school system and removing asbestos. And we couldn't find any of this work being done on the school system. So we asked for an investigation, and plus there's a $10,000 lobbyist contract that Mr. Burrows tried to push through for a friend of his. And we understand you don't want to see your friends when they have going through a hardship. You just can't do things illegally. That's what's happening right now in the White House right now. But granted, we sat this and we were very detailed, letting our state's attorney know, because she has a white collar crime unit, that this should be investigated. You know what the response we got from this? Nothing. Here's another follow-up. So we figured after a judge had adjudicated this case and seeing what we saw back in 2021, he saw in 2023 that Edward Burrows did indeed forge that contract. We went back to her, wrote her again. You can see we first told you this on June 9th, 2021. It's now April 2023. So we wrote her again. And what does she do? Nada. Nothing. Yep, crickets. Even after a judge found out the same thing we saw. And remember now, it cost the county almost $250,000 for Dr. Miller to defend herself against vice chair now. He's vice chair of the council, Edward Burrows, a man who forged a contract.
10 toes down.
I mean, we complain about having a convicted felon in the White House. Well, we
got one too.
We got it. Yeah, we got it. Well, he didn't get convicted.
He's not convicted
because our state's attorney didn't do her job.
Let's go back and correct that.
Okay.
Now,
yes.
Let me show another one. Here's another email. This is an email that we sent again to the state's attorney because the school board chair, who at that time, Judy Mickens Murray, was about to pay invoices. And again, we stressed to her what the judge had said about, and this has to do now with the person running for District 5 County Council, Shayla Adams Stafford. What does she do? Nothing. Nada. Here's another letter. This letter written by Dr. Juanita Miller to then the chair of the board, Calvin Hawkins, outlining the things that Edward Burrows was doing that were a violation of procurement guidelines.
10 toes down.
All of this, 3 pages. I spoke to the IG for the U.S. Department of Education. She asked me, what is your state's attorney doing with all this serious stuff written? I said, nada, nothing. So here's the problem I have. So she let him off the hook. This is another Donald Trump thing. Just let him off the hook. Let him just run rampant with abusing the law. And now what do we have? He's endorsing her. Isn't that nice? Ain't that nice?
Yes. That's lovely.
And maybe she didn't want to answer this question. How do you accept an endorsement from someone who forges checks, who
Easy.
creates
10
a
toes down,
hostile
like
environment?
Councilman Hawkins said.
Yeah, who creates a hostile environment for somebody trying to uphold the law, who does a contract over $500,000 and we can't account for the money, but you accept this person's endorsement and your state's attorney, and you have a white collar crime unit. So maybe that's why she didn't want to come. She was afraid
So
some of those questions would be asked.
At the Collective Empowerment Groups forum, I went and they had a online Q question submission thing, and I submitted the question asking her to break down her convictions because they said she has a 90+% rate of conviction. So I said, well, can you tell us what the breakdown is of those, and particularly your white collar crime? And they didn't choose my question, of course, but
LeVon, do we know what the conviction rate was
is.
before that? Has it always been 90? Is it up? Is it down?
Nobody's never talked
I would
about
like, can we improve that 90? What's the federal government conviction rate?
Well, I don't know.
That should be the gold standard, right?
Never heard anybody talk about it.
Well, like and the other question is how many cases? How many cases?
Right. Right. Again, no data.
Is it 5 cases?
When you go on the website, you can't find anything. So
one thing that y'all missed that I wasn't gonna bring up, but since you said it, since you mentioned, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Where is it? Councilwoman Ivy said the desire to have the easier win and let the tougher cases go. That's what contributes to people being on the streets committing crimes again, and they get better every time.
Wow.
Did y'all miss that one?
I got it. No, I got it.
She said that
in the number right there.
She said that in our debate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how did I miss that?
Wow. I tell you.
That blows me away. That's just as much as her saying she ran so Tim Adams couldn't be on the council. I just.
Yeah, that one really blew me away. I'm like, that is so undemocratic.
I'm
like,
sure that's just
like I would rather you endorse a candidate and stick behind them versus saying that you're gonna subvert the will of the people. Insert yourself in order to do that.
And she did laugh when she said that. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe she thought
we don't joke about.
No,
like
it was not a joke. She was very serious. She said, "I do not believe he would have been a good fit, for the council. Maybe another council, but not this one." So pretty much, I guess maybe while she's on it, he should never be. I don't know, but if she wins the county executive seat, then that seat is going to be vacant. He could very much well run for it. So
she thought he would
at large. It wouldn't make a difference.
I keep forgetting.
She thought he would be a DEI candidate.
Sorry, she's run too many times in the past 3 months. I can't keep track. So yeah, but that's just not right. Like and in her closing remarks today, no knock on motherhood, but I don't want to hear about
your 4 boys all the time. That's how she's trying to relate.
Right. Like, stop.
Is it 4 or 5? I'm sorry.
You're not the average wife. You got to stay home. I mean, no, I'm not going to do that. Never mind.
Please don't.
No, never mind.
The thing is, we are in a bad position, and the candidate needs to come with some substance other than I was born here, I raised my family here, I went to school here, my child went to school here. We need to hear more than that. We need to hear some plans, solid plans of how we are going to get out of this 181 million. I'm hearing now it's upward, so that means that we're still doing some spending, but how are we going to get out of this mess? How are we going to?
No, I was saying we're tapping into our reserves like heavily.
Well, we don't have that much left because remember, 2 years, our former county executive, now senator, spent 2 years without disclosing to us. So it's not like we have a lot of money left.
Whoo, Lord have mercy, y'all. I just don't understand all these people bad mouthing the county, but they all endorsed her. Like, what?
They're separate.
I just don't like. I mean, it's just bad. Well, you know, she would not. They asked her a question. Asked Aisha a question today about her criticism of Angela.
I saw that. I did see that one part.
They, you know, Pastor Bobby was kind of trying to clean up the question in his words. I'm like, just ask her why she ain't support her. And I would have said, because she ain't support me. You know, just whatever.
Didn't she say, she said that she couldn't, well, she just said she couldn't beat Larry Hogan. I think that was what her comments were. I don't think she did the integrity and the tricycle thing, the bicycle training.
Yeah, she said she didn't say anything that her opponents, some of the people here have said things about her. The fact that you didn't endorse her says that you had an issue with her. That's what they really was trying to ask. Well, people are upset because they're saying I'm not going to support her because she didn't support Angela.
Well, did Angela support Aisha? Because quiet as it's kept, there were events that, you know, people were wondering, why'd you leave the state's attorney off? Shouldn't this be a collaborative event where you talk about crime and you doing curfews and et cetera, et cetera? So, you know,
she rolled the bus over Aisha.
And then thereafter, like when, you know, the coverage was happening, you know, and yeah, she definitely jabbed her again, you know, we're talking about the attorney's office. So, you know, it happens, you know. I guess this is what they call politics.
So
some of the questions, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that one of the interesting dynamics of this experience has been listening to Calvin and Jolene indirectly criticize Angela while trying to not dignify the challenges. For example, Calvin is just hell-bent on taking away Rashurn's leadership over crime issues. And he says, well, you know, the county executive Baker had help because he had Angela also Brooks as a state's attorney. He said, yes, I did, but I had da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then today, I think the question was like, well, or somebody said, well, why is it that that's what it was. Somebody put in the questions, why is it that you weren't able to, Angela wasn't able to improve crime when she was county executive? Well, like, you know, and they didn't ask the question. They didn't ask the question, but y'all know I've been saying that.
Look, all you got to do is watch the beginning of Law and Order, and you can answer that question can be answered. Who gets the criminals off the street? It is not you have no case to prosecute if the police are not doing their job, and that's under the county executive. So, you know, stop trying to steal the thunder of the county executive work.
Well, I tried to check a couple of things to find out the stats of Ms. Sprayboy's conviction, and even Chatbox said I can't find anything on her conviction rate. So where did the 90% come from?
I'm sure that has to be internal. The reason why some of the search engines cannot locate the information is because it hasn't been made public.
It also said the Sprayboy has focused on initiatives during her term, including gun violence, supporting victims of abuse, and implementing innovative solutions to public safety challenges.
Is that the restorative justice stuff? Is that what they're talking about?
Okay. Yes.
Community in the courthouse. I think she did something she mentioned today.
And watching white collar crime in Prince George's County.
Right.
So you have a unit.
Fraud, waste, and abuse.
Well, that unit has particularly focused on prosecuting police officers. That was, you know, kind of what she has made in a few statements from what I was able to gather.
White collar crime?
No, yeah, that the Public Integrity Unit.
But now it's called Integrity Unit. It used to be, it was before white collar, but now when she redid her website, anticipating for this great moment to run for county executive, it was changed. But you can still see it still talks about corruption among elected officials, and police are not elected officials.
Mm-mm.
All right, well, let's get ready to wrap this up. It's been great. We can do this a couple of different ways. Do y'all want to give?
Well, before you get ready to wrap up, I definitely want to say I had some scenario based questions as well that people need to see. I know I sent the show run to Levon and Tanya, so obviously the public wasn't able to see it. Just myself, the moderator, and the co-host. But I did want to test their leadership. We didn't get to those questions because of time, But one of them I wanted to know: imagine a public official falsely. Well, actually, this is a better one. It was like halfway through your 18-month term, and an unexpected economic downturn causes a major budget shortfall. You must immediately cut like $50 million from the county budget or found new revenue. What's your plan? And I think that was supposed to be, with losing funding, federal funds, because we don't know what's going to play out. So it was just to kind of test exactly and see, what some of the candidates were thinking, because, there are perceptions as well that we tax and spend, that Democrats, and that's the only thing that I have a problem with.
Tax.
And that's the only problem I have is with being able to trust government with the taxes that we do give them. A lot of people say we pay the most amount of money for the least amount of resources, and we should have better services. We should have this, we should have that, because we pay the highest taxes, but and others would say that we need to do with what we have. But the problem is, and I do agree with that we do have a lot of wasteful spending, and there's a lot of corruption that goes on, and that hasn't been arisen to the level where people we keep talking about audits, and that's my thing, because there's been a lot of audits, but there is some prosecution that needs to go on, and I think that here in this county, we've just been doing the slap on the wrist for a lot of that stuff, and other places they are like, hey, you are stealing from the public. This is the people's money, and we have to be good stewards of that, and that's why I go so hard, and I will be speaking again at the next budget meeting, I believe. But that's just my two thoughts about that.
Help! But you know what? I will say that we suffer from being Black. Mm-hmm. We suffer from being Black. We benefit from being Black. We progress from being. Our problem is being Black. Mm-hmm. Our challenge is being Black. And nobody talks about race and the impact, how it affects us. But we about to find out. And you can't say that we don't have this and we don't have that, and we got poverty. Like, our ratio for poverty is bad. Like, Alonzo gave a number today about what the poverty level for children. I don't want to misquote it, but it was more than 50% of children who are poor in Prince George's County. And we don't acknowledge that. We just want to take care of
the affluency.
Right. And then we want to talk about more affordable housing. Well, eventually, the affordable housing is going to start to run out. Mm-hmm. It's already running out. I'm sure you know this better than I do, Sherman. We need more. But what does that mean? That means more people who need affordable housing are going to come here, which means the expensive housing is going to do what? Right? That's why townhouse communities are so challenged, because they be turned over and become rental properties, and the state does not have anything to help the HOAs against that. And once it becomes 51%, you lose your you lose your first-time homeowners option. So then you lose new buyers because the owners go, well, I'm just going to rent, right? Because people can't get the convention loan. So it's it's such a cycle that I would love us to
and
do.
that's where we miss in the budget because of the recordation taxes, the transfer recordation. And that number has gone down. And that was one of the key points in the Spending Affordability Committee's letter about that. But
right. And we need to just figure out how to invest. Like I said in my testimony, we need to invest in research. We got all these universities here in Prince George's County. Yep. You want to talk about young professionals getting into government? When we were in office, real quick, when we were in office, I hosted a government fellow in the office of the county executive, and he had a set of criteria and things he had to do for his paper, and I walked him through everything he needed. What if we could do paid stipends and fellows? And somebody told me that we used to do fellows in the government. And there are people who work in county government today who came in under a fellowship program under Jack Johnson. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if it was a federally funded thing. I don't know the details. But we can cultivate new people if we begin to do new things. So with that being said, y'all want to grade the people? Let's start.
I don't necessarily know about grading, but I'm going to do a ranked choice vote on this one. And that'll be a nice introduction. And for everybody paying attention, that was a conversation brought up in a few spaces. I'm going to have that on CAG chat so that we can actually talk about what ranked choice voting is. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do tonight.
Okay, you can rank choice.
Derek and Donna, did y'all have anything?
It's still
because Donna hasn't been able to say much.
No, I think everything.
I'm good.
Well, I do have one thing I want to say before we do our ranked choice voting. I just want for people, we are in a critical time, and you know, it's wonderful to love a person and love their personality and love hanging out with them, but that doesn't make them a county executive. Y'all can go have Friday night drinks, whatever you want to do, handle it on that side, but we have got to start voting smarter. Folks with no executive level experience should not be running for county executive. Those who have contributed to the mess that we are in, you should not be running for county executive.
Well, that would, people will argue and say that there should be no elected officials, current or former, that should run it, and by that definition.
No, because I didn't say that. No, that's not what I said. What I said was if you are a contributor to where we are right now. Oh, I see what you're saying.
And people will never been right.
So you're saying it's never been right.
That would listen. That's what people have been saying.
Okay, let me tell you. If you are currently on the council, this council has probably been the worst council I have ever seen since I have been in Prince George's County and been old enough to understand how they work. You don't need to be running. You need to go.
And both of them have been chairs, and one is president chair.
I don't care. They need to sit down. All right. I'm sorry, state's attorney. You don't. I don't want to hear anything about you care about your citizens because you didn't care about it. When legislators revise the school board law so it made more sense to make sure that board members who were falsely accused of issues and they had to defend themselves to make sure that they could get paid. The person who could have stopped all of this, so it never happened, by prosecuting the board member who forged a check, lied under oath by submitting things to the state board, because you do have to fill out an affidavit saying that this stuff is true. And he lied knowing it was not true. She could have prosecuted him.
Destroyed evidence.
We would have never had any of this mess. But yet and still, when that bill passed, she's up there taking photo ops with Dr. Miller, they're like she did something. No, go sit down. Just go sit down and figure out some other stuff, and maybe in 2026 you should run. So from my perspective, those 3 incumbents need to go, and we need to be focusing on some fresh new faces, or we need to be focusing on the other candidates. That's all I have to say on that one.
All right, so let me just real quick.
We already know who my 3 are out, so you know what I'm going to put on those.
I just want to look at my notes real quick. 2 things that were said. 3 things that were said. There were a lot of general answers. That's my observation. Someone said that there's no right answer for crime. This was in the YouTube chat. There's no right answer for crime. Many social and economic issues come into play. I like when Mr. Cruz mentioned urban living versus suburban development, or urban development versus suburban development. We didn't really get into land use a lot. And then there were several mentions about youth. And the one of the benefits to the county executive, the way the old structure was under Rasharn, is, like he said, he did that so that the CEO, the school leadership, the school system leadership would be at the table as part of the cabinet to hear how government was working and where things were overlapped and where they could, get resources, right? And so I think that because of the law changing or the structure changing, there's some issues, there's going to be some challenges that we were able to address. And then youth jobs, youth employment. One of the challenges that we have with kids working is that they don't have transportation. And we didn't talk about transportation in the debate either. So with that being said, those were some of the observations that I made and I saw in the chat. So who wants to go first on their ranking? For me, I only did the 4 people: Baker, Hawkins, Ivy, and Sweat. Y'all can talk about whoever you want, rank them however you want.
I already told you 3. I got 3 who's already out, so I'm only focusing on the other ones.
All right, so you got
the incumbents out:
Baker, Sweat, and the trio.
Right, Baker,
Can
Sweat,
we just eliminate the trio?
Baker, Sweat, Slocum, Hunt, and Cruz.
Okay. Donna,
was there a new candidate there today?
No, he's a Republican.
No, Jonathan White. Yeah, he
should have stayed home. He just should stay home. He was making me go to sleep. He was so dry.
Right. I did not get to see all of the candidates, so I have to go back before I rank to be fair.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to rank, not in any particular order, but I would look at Mr. Sharon Baker, because he has experience as a county exec. I will look at Tanya Sweat because of her background and her tenacity that she seems to have against corruption, and how she can present exactly how she would attack certain things. And who is and I'm not going to discredit Slocum and Cruz and guys, those guys, but
Mr. Hunt.
I'm sorry.
The Hunt, Mr. Hunt.
Or Mr. Hunt, but I think they have. Mr. Hunt has business sense and savvy. I know that because he runs several businesses. But
yeah, he does make sense. It's when he talked about his businesses, but
right.
I want to see how that translates. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Slocum and Cruz, I think they have a great deal of potential, but I don't know all the experience and background. But in terms of a county exec, I don't know if they're quite ready to step up and handle something of that intense level. Yeah. But I do like some of the ideas and some of the things that they said. But that's it. I put Baker, Sweat, and really, to be honest with you, that's for me. That's why I'm looking at between the two of them.
Yeah. For myself, and I will go in order. Baker, Sweat, um, Washington, and Cruz. And I like Cruz because he said a lot of stuff that I talked about when I was campaigning as well, about the need to intensify the CTEs. I had a different vision of how it should look. He has his version of it, but I do like that he's talking about um, uh, educating and retraining individuals. For me, I wanted to do with adults as well because I realized that there are a lot of people who come to our community or who actually live here who never had the opportunity to go to a CTE or go to college or different places like that. And I understand that the community college has certain programs, and employee Prince George's, they are have a different programs for apprenticeships and stuff like that. But I think that we need to expand it. So that's kind of why I went with him. But of course, I went with for sure because I feel as though he's done that job. He's excelled in it. Yes, he has had a lot of flaws when it comes with certain stuff that he did within his administration. But overall, I look at growth in an individual, and also I look to see if you are able to how do you handle yourself. And he did not shy away from any question that I threw at him. Some of the other people did. And averting, just be upfront, be 100, be truthful, because we see it. We were not stupid. So that's for me, that was a lot of selling points.
Right.
For Sweat, I mean, I'm just going to say this: integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all that we do. Those are our Air Force core values. Sweat and I are both airmen. I love her for that. But I also see how she still carries those and embody those ethos. And that's kind of also why I said I want to see her as state's attorney or maybe on OIG, because I believe that she would prosecute to the fullest extent of the law a lot of the stuff that we're seeing happening in Prince George's County. But as an executive, she can very much well do, kind of have conversations with different people in order to affect those changes. And Washington, I think he has the capacity, the capacity to be a good county executive. I've definitely seen that he has arrived and showed up today for the event. So I'm looking forward to learning more about him and what we can do. And as far as the others, congratulations on I wish you all well. For me, Ron Hunt is an honorable mention. He's a
I think he is too.
He is an honorable mention. He definitely stands out in more ways than one.
Herman, I just want to say this before you go too far about
I was done.
About yourself as a young African American male, and Senator Washington is a young African American male. I applaud both of you for your tenacity and what you do and how you do it. You remind me of myself in some ways at that age, and I went through hell. I was told I was a womanizer. Look at how he dressed. He thinks he's all that. He just, and I just want to commend both of you young brothers. And I didn't say much about Washington. I don't know a lot about him, but for him to be a senator and young like that, I'm going to just say this to the both of you on camera: stay true to yourself. Number one, fight for what's right. Don't let the political arena and the other people who think you ought to be what they want you to be make you that person. No, you be what you strive to be, and have integrity and be sincere and honest in what you do. And I say that to you, and I say that to Mr. Washington, because don't get caught up in all this mess, man, because we need young, strong Black men in the future to help pave the way. And that's not to discredit any other ethnic background, but for the Black community, we need strong young Black men out there leading the way. And just stay strong to the both of you, and don't get caught up in the corruption.
Okay, can I I gotta jump in on that one now. Okay. So I already told y'all my picks.
I don't know.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Let me just go ahead and say what I got to say because y'all know I'm going to say it anyway.
Right.
So, of course, for me, it would definitely, the first two choices, I think, that are best for us right now, comes down to Baker and Sweat, because they seem like they're focused on they have a plan.
Have a grasp.
The and they have an idea of what really needs to be fixed. I think the one that probably has the more of the courage to move forward would be Sweat. Not to say that that's always the right mix, but after that it would and I'm telling you, he's like that horse coming up at the last stretch, and I think that would be Hunt, but I think that would be Hunt. But
we laugh.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he would, because he's rough. He's very rough around the edges. There's no doubt about that. Almost Godfather.
But you know what he's thinking and saying. So yeah.
Exactly. He demands the respect. He sounds like he'll give you the respect. Now he kind of like canceled himself out today because he said women get things done better than men.
Right.
So then I was like, well, then you come across then being a little chauvinistic because you want to be in power so you can hire women and tell them.
Why not fire yourself and hire?
Right. So he kind of messed up on that one today.
Yeah.
But but if anything, he would be that horse that comes up from the back and win. I'm sorry, I just cannot. Senator Washington is very well spoken. There's no doubt he has the young energy, and we need more young people. But I'm sorry, but I can't. I am done with
the legislation.
I'm done with the progressive agenda. We need to start looking at what happened in California. We need to look at what has been happening in Pennsylvania. We need to look at what has even happened some places in some in Wisconsin, where you've had this big progressive agenda going. California is just about bankrupt, and unfortunately now they got to deal with burnout. We look at all that we lost in this last race in Pennsylvania, again, pushing this progressive agenda. And I'm not saying all progressive agendas are bad. It's just unfortunate there's so much corruption surrounded around the progressive agenda in Maryland. And I'm not saying that these folks are not sincere. I'm not saying that they don't want to help. It's just that they have gone to doing things on the extreme side to get what they want, and even sometimes breaking policies and just doing things that are really unethical and unscrupulous that they just shouldn't do. And the legislation that we're bouncing around right now that has to do with the OIG office, that's with the Office of Integrity and Compliance. That is a bill that he sponsored for a friend. We don't need people who are going to do legislation like that. This buddy stuff got to go away. So,
but one thing I also want to say, because some people say I'm biased, and I try to remove biases from me. And I try to, give both sides of the story. I am a Libra. So that's also what the justice kick in. But that blueprint, he has stated several times that, that's his, one of his claim to fame. But, it's killing the state. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I am saying that, possibly we should have rethought it or, expanded the timeframes for some of the actions. Especially because so many people said, this is unsustainable. We can't afford it. I mean, even the county executive, Angela Alsobrooks at the time, she was
Yeah,
saying
but you got
how
to remember why they were doing that. Remember, was it
because the educators weren't able
Williams
to get the
who came on the chat and was saying, "Well, we got to get that because we specifically wrote that to make sure."
No. That's two conversations. I'm sorry. That's HB 396 and 397. That's the
But you said
telecommunication. I'm talking about.
you said the blueprint.
Yeah. I'm saying as far as the blueprint. Well, you're saying I don't know if you're about to talk about how they needed the funding to pay for the blueprint on the other.
No. Some of the
Okay.
things that they said they wrote into the blueprint
Oh,
just
the
to make
blueprint, right?
sure
Okay.
purposely
I'm sorry.
that Prince George's County would get the biggest part of the pie coming from the state.
From the poverty grants, right? Because
Exactly. Exactly. So, to write legislations like that, either for a friend or to me that crippled Prince George's County because it gives us the excuse to not have to deal with moving our people living in poverty into the active economy so that they're contributing. And that's not helping us. We've been doing this for too long in Prince George's County like this. So that is why I would not support him. But I will say I agree with you about Cruz. He would be the other, horse from the back of the pack that could come up.
Right.
So, Sharman, you said somebody wanted us to talk about endorsements.
Yeah, they wanted to talk about. I think a conversation happened in CAG about endorsements and how they weigh, and I believe that's the direction they want us to go in. It was very vague and unclear, but they said in the chat talk about endorsements.
All right, well, let me do my little grading thing,
and then we'll close out.
Wrap up with endorsements. I said on one of the debriefings.
Can I just say something before? Because I know you have your script and everything.
I don't script.
My decision was based not just on what happened with my interviews or the debate. I actually, I have been enjoying this process so much you guys would not believe it. I've been going to all the different forums and sitting in the audience and, just doing my part as a citizen, and seeing how it looks on this end. And so I've been enjoying that. So I was really paying, being attentive to all of the forums. I even went to like a lot of their announcements. I went to Jolene Ivy's. I went to Aisha Brave Boys. Who else did I go to? It was who was the other person in the event? Well, I didn't get to make to all of them, but I went to one of Baker's events where he was at a breakfast spot. But I wanted to be, I wanted to be wooed, essentially. So that's how I made up my mind. To be honest with you, that's just I just want to put it out there. Just following them on the trail.
So, and I think that's okay. Now you messed me up because now I have another thought.
Go ahead.
I think that's important, and that's what we do. We want to encourage people to do the work. And I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna say it after this. Okay. So, as I said, I worked with Rashawn. I've gotten to know Tanya in the past 2 years. For me, they're the only two viable candidates, period. They're very similar in a way, and yet they're very different. Their approach to things is different, but the way they think is very similar. The analysis of their decisions. Tanya is, like you talked about, her military background. She's a by the book person. Here's the policy. This is what it means. This is how I'm going to address it. And Rashawn does things a little bit differently, probably than everybody, in that he uses history to guide his decisions.
He's a big history buff. I love that.
He uses history to guide his decisions, and I mean, it's kind of like not a bad way to be when you look at where we are in this country right now. If you don't know history, then you don't know what the heck is going on. You don't know what the possibilities are. You have no hope. I mean, some of us don't put our hope in history, but if you know history, then you can at least say, well, they made it through. We'll get through this, right? There's precedent already set. And so I too have not thought about her being state's attorney, but I think she'd be dynamite, or I mean IG. I think she either way, both. I don't know if she'd be open to that, but I think I respect you for putting that out there, Sherman.
I don't like to influence people or tell somebody to run or not run. As a veteran, I feel as though if it's our civic duty to do all of these things. So I even hate when people tell me that, but so that's why I never said it to her. But yeah, absolutely.
Well, you done said it to her now. Hey, Tanya.
I just have a feeling that she would be phenomenal. But go ahead.
Right, I believe she'll be in whatever she does. I can talk about Baker, but I'd rather not talk about Baker, because to talk about Baker would be to just talk about other things. And what I would rather just focus on the strengths that I see in Tanya. Tanya is funny. Tanya is personable. She can be country.
I love that.
She can put on the King's English and still get her little, South Carolina in. I watched her today own the dais, sitting next to Calvin and the Republican candidate. She was cordial and congenial to Calvin versus other attitudes that I saw today. Even though he dissed her the other day, she didn't come in there today with that disposition. And that says a lot. That's encouraging to me as a person, because I can hold a grudge, okay?
Nah.
Whatever. She's just refreshing, a refreshing personality in the political landscape. And so I just, that's just where I am with Baker
really?
Wins, yay. Tanya wins, yay.
Really, it's like they're opposite sides of a coin, if that makes sense. And not opposite in a bad way. Like they have a lot of the qualities and traits. Yeah. And it's sort of like if you're looking for an established figure who's done it before, who's proven that he can do it again and replicate that, then you'll go with the option. And then if you decide that you want to try something new and I feel like that would be your option right there. Somebody who still knows something about something. It may, it still may be that learning curve. We're not going to negate that. It's the truth, because you have to get your foot in everything like that. So, but for me, I'm going on repeated experience. But I definitely feel like either way, I would be satisfied.
Right. But, my thing is, if you're rejecting people with political who've already been in the game, somebody made a comment the other night about they were tired of recycling politicians. And I said, well, can you explain recycling? Do you mean moving them from one seat to the next seat, or just somebody getting reelected a second time? Like, explain to me what that is. And I'm going to use Marion Barry as an example. And I will say this about Rashawn. People love Marion Barry. Marion Barry can't do no wrong. You better not say nothing bad about Marion Barry. They would elect that man from the grave if he could serve. But what's the problem with Rashawn? He didn't break any laws. He made no...
Ain't stuffed no money inside his panties.
He ain't done none of that.
What's wrong with Rashawn is that the whole Maxwell situation, the Eubank situation, people still who have not seen my interview, who need to see my interview, they say about the taxes being raised. those are some of the faults. You know, the second trash day, that was another fault. What else? People. I mean, education was a huge thing, and then some of the police stuff he was getting blamed for previous administration stuff. But it was those are some of the key things that I have heard that people are upset with him about. That he has answered about, but again, everybody has their flaws.
And here's my thing. You don't have to agree with all the decisions that he made, but he can explain to you why. And my thing is, it did not bankrupt this county. It did not cause nobody to go to jail. It did, like, I just need.
Well, they were trying to say pretty much his decision to put them in the school caused us to lose that Head Start funding as well.
But I can't really say that one way or the other, because sometimes things are on a timeline. And it's not just what happened in that school year or something. So I would have
that was directly under his administration.
Right. Like I would have to go back and look at that. And I don't know that. But all I'm saying
I can tell you for sure I do. For sure it happened under his administration.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I will give it to him for showing the growth of admitting some of the mistakes that he made.
Right. So let me ask you this, Tanya. If he were not responsible for the school system because of the way he had restructured it, would he still be to blame for the Head Start?
Well, see, this is the problem. Even the way he had restructured the law, he was not supposed to be involved with the day-to-day operations of the school system.
Right.
But he chose to interject himself in there, and that
he should have did an Angela and said, "Not my monkey, not my circus."
Okay. Right. So that would be fair. I just can't remember the details of it, but that would be fair. And so that would be fair. I ain't gonna say nothing else because that'll lead to something else. And I said I wasn't gonna say much, but I would just say that, the hypocrisy of our people is so interesting to me. That's how I'm gonna leave it. The other people I dismiss because I don't believe that you should be able to run for a seat in your midterm when you were elected 2 years ago. It'll be disruptive if one of them were to win, whether it's an appointment by the judge to the state's attorney's office or whether it's another special election. We are already in an unstable state, and I don't think that running for this office has anything to do with the people. And then I'm looking at who you will potentially bring into office with you. That's concerning to me. And it's just like a whole, snowball. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And so the one thing I will say about Mr. Cruz is when he was running for the Senate, I did think he has a county executive platform. What he's talking about is not a Senate seat platform. But at the same time, now that he's running for county executive, he don't know. He don't know. I don't care that you got a business. You got to make it relate. You got to connect the dots.
There were some points, but overall, I just like some of the stuff that he was saying.
He would do better as a DCAO. He would be good maybe with something with economic development and infrastructure or something like that. Maybe. But stop telling me you in the schools. The county executive don't have nothing to do with the schools. Like, y'all need to stop. And so I think that
and that's why our organization didn't even ask all those education questions and was like specific on what can you do as county executive in the school system.
And they didn't answer the question. They did. They still didn't get it right. But anyway, so that's what I have to bring to the table. It is what it is. Endorsements. My personal professional opinion about endorsements. I think they've gotten ridiculous. I think that people who don't live in Prince George's County or the state of Maryland should mind their business because they don't know these people. The Democratic Party has just gotten to be popularity contest, and anybody that knows somebody can get somebody to give you an endorsement, and all of a sudden you the creme de la creme for the Democratic Party, and you ain't done nothing.
That's why I started staying out of other people's politics unless I research and know it for myself, or talk to people in the community there, because a lot of times we see these national figures and we be like, oh yay, and then it turns out like you shouldn't have done that.
All that endorsement that they did for DNC chair and couldn't even get over 50 votes. Come on.
Right. And so my thing is, I think that the people who serve in Prince George's County should be able to endorse who they want without retribution. And when you don't see people doing that, it's because they don't support the lead person, the popular person, and they don't want to get in the mud or have mud thrown at them because they endorse somebody else.
Because a lot of people will support you behind the scene. They'll be like, oh, I can help you behind the scenes, but I'm not gonna come out and say, I can't do that because I don't want to upset, or I have to go with this person because my slate is going with this person. And so it's a lot that goes into these things that the average person doesn't even know, because they've never been in a position to either have to ask for it or expect it, or et cetera, et cetera. So but that's just the word to the wise.
And so to the voters, what I would say is, don't get that Senate slate, that senator slate, and be like, oh, I'm gonna vote for who the senator told me to vote for, because that senator negotiated with that person to be on there, to put them on their slate, or to give that endorsement. The endorsement doesn't come without a deal being cut. It ain't genuine. Very few of them are genuine. Like I got something in the mail today from somebody promoting that they got endorsed by somebody. Who cares? What does that have to do with your ability? They done moved on. They doing their own thing. I don't, not one of them people that endorsed Jolene from the Capitol live in Prince George's County. Not one of them. Hoyer don't live here, Cardin don't live here, and Mfube don't live here. So why do I care? You are not suffering the issues that we have to endure.
That's right.
You chose to leave out of Prince George's County. So stop. It's so patronizing to me, and I'm gonna do this. Let me just do this. Shout out to Sidney Harrison, District 9 council member, who gave his endorsement to Rashern. Kudos to you, Sidney. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, here at CAG, we also recognize that accountability is a team effort, and that's why we encourage you, the residents of Prince George's County, to get involved, stay informed, engage locally, and if you see something that doesn't seem right, to speak up. We also take, and by the way, here at CAG, we do accept tips on matters that seem amiss in government, because good governance requires diligence from all of us. Yes. We encourage everyone to stay informed and exercise your right to vote in the upcoming election. Remember, you can mail in your ballot at any point right now, but you also have a few more opportunities to go and watch these candidates. I think there's like 3 or 4 other forums coming up very soon. Remember, election day is March 3rd, and early voting is February 26th. Have a great evening, everybody.
Deuces.
All right.
All right.